Hey guys, it's Caroline. I hope you're having a great day. I'm shooting this video in the park today and it's getting a little windy, so hopefully that won't be too distracting, and I'm hoping that you can hear me okay. So today's video is the second video in my money mindset series. And today's video is all about debt. So last time we talked about savings, and today we'll be going over debt and why it's such an important component of your relationship with money, and in particular, the need to eliminate debt. And talking about debt is actually one of my favorite topics, not because debt is good, being in debt is awful, but I actually really love helping people get out of debt and to be able to manage their spending and sort of break free from that crippling feeling of being in debt. And being able to manage your money in this way and get out of debt is, as I said, a really important component of having a healthy relationship with money. And so today's video, if you do have some debt, might make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. There goes the plane. Hopefully that's not too loud. Yeah, it might make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. And look, if it does, it just, it means it's triggering something within you. So, debt can be like this deep, dark secret that you feel that you've got to keep from the world. It's sort of like this dark cloud that just hangs over you all the time, because no matter what you do, your debt is there and you can be constantly reminded of that. And so if you do find that triggering today, that's okay. What I'd like to do is sort of give you a bit of the background as to, I guess, the feelings and emotions that come up around debt. But in particular, see it as a positive thing, that you're actually acknowledging the fact that you do have debt, if that applies to you. One thing that really works with the different things that I do in coaching is that if you can clearly identify something and name it and talk about it in a healthy way, then you're really on the right track to being able to solve that problem. So, just stick with me, and as I go through these videos, I will show you some practical tips to actually dealing with any debt that you might have. And so one thing I want to clarify for starters is what I actually mean by debt, because you might come across the terms good debt and bad debt. And so to give you a bit of an explanation of those, so bad debt is anything like credit card spending, store cards, any form of sort of, I guess, debt associated with consumer spending, as opposed to good debt, which tends to be like a home loan, a mortgage that's helping you acquire an asset. So I personally like to put a little bit of a different spin on it, and I basically say that bad debt is any debt that you find crippling. So definitely, all the credit card debt, that's a bad form of debt. But your home loan can also be crippling if, for example, you've, totally overcapitalized and you're struggling with your mortgage repayments. Then getting this down to a healthier level is really important as well. So there can be bad debt in what traditionally gets described as good debt. And so really it's just anything that, you find crippling, that's maybe hard to repay back and that makes you feel negative. And so the first part of this exercise is to think about how much debt you actually have. So you don't need to know the exact number, but just if you were to guess, how much debt would you say you have? And what's important here is not the actual number that comes up. It's really about the feelings and the thoughts that come up around being in that level of debt. And so to start with, if you think about that amount of debt, how does that make you feel? Are there any particular emotions that come up? Does it make you feel sick? Like some people can have a really strong reaction to being in debt. And I mentioned last time that some people are more feeling dominant or thought dominant. And so it might be that you think certain things about being in debt more than feeling them. But debt is one of the aspects of money that's quite strong. And so most people, if they are in debt, do have quite strong feelings around that. So the emotion that comes up the most strongly around debt is actually shame. And now, if the word shame doesn't really resonate with you, another one that you can substitute that with is embarrassment. So sort of this feeling that you don't want anyone to know about it. It's sort of like I said, a deep, dark secret and something you sort of try to hide from the world. And so that tends to be a really strong feeling because, we tend to think we should never have gotten in debt in the first place. And we don't want anyone to know that we've got debt. So, the other way to think about this is to try and draw out what you say to yourself about being in debt. So this will sort of draw out the thoughts that you have. Now, the danger with some of these, negative thoughts is that we often don't know they're there, yet they're churning away through our minds, constantly throughout the day. Like little things will pop up, you might go to spend some money on your credit card. and you just get that sick feeling, or you just, sigh, like with just a really, negative feeling of despair around being in debt, because it's that reminder. And so, one thing you can ask yourself is, if you're in debt, well, what does that say about me? How do you see yourself as a result of the fact that you're in debt? And, if you can't really relate to the thoughts that you're having, that's okay for now. If you feel bad, that's an indication that you do have negative thoughts, and there's things you can do to really draw out, what those negative thoughts are. And so some of those common thoughts, so the common self-talk that people have associated with debt is feelings of worthlessness, just a reminder that maybe you've made mistakes in the past, and then it sort of turns into this spiraling cycle where, staying in debt is even more proof of a feeling of worthlessness. So it really is a negative and crippling emotion that you want to be able to clear. And the problem with all of these thoughts and emotions around debt is that they can actually keep you trapped in debt because they're so negative and they're so intense. And, they can really stop you from getting ahead. And so of the 6 different types of money, so you've got savings, today we're doing debt, you've got income goals, expenses, and toxic money. I would say being in debt is the worst, and it's the part of your relationship with money that you'll want to tackle first and really get on top of. And, the reason it's the most crippling is because it'll stop you from saving, because your excess money will need to go into debt. It'll reduce your disposable income. So, it sort of puts that, like, you may be earning money, but it's not really available to you. It'll stop you from achieving your goals, because again, it's that reminder of, the feeling of worthlessness, or feeling like no matter what you do, you can never get ahead because all your extra money is going to go into debt repayment. It can make you feel really bad about spending money. As I mentioned before, like the simple act of handing over your credit card to someone can just feel awful, because you know that you're just adding to debt that you've already got. And then if you've got toxic money, which I'll explain in a later video, it can really keep you stuck there as well. So, look, I know that was sort of a lot of negativity, and my intention isn't to make you feel like crap or to keep you in this negative space. So let's talk about what you can do if you're in debt. So similar to the recap that I did with savings, there's really 2 important steps to being able to clear your debt. So the first one, and actually the most important one, is to be able to break free from that trauma and those negative emotions that are associated with debt. And, that involves really having some compassion for yourself as well. So being able to understand that, however it is that you got in debt, like, that's the situation as it stands, and you don't have to keep beating yourself up about it. And one thing that you can do straight away to help settle those emotions, now if you've watched any of my previous videos on tapping, then you'll know what this technique is. If you haven't, that's okay. You can simply sort of just copy along. So one thing that I like to do if you're trying to really get to, settling some painful emotions, is sort of just find your collarbone point, which is sort of around here, and it's a little dip, like a little soft part just underneath your collarbone. And if you just tap on that gently with 2 fingers, then, you can take a deep breath and just reflect on the situation, and, just sort of give yourself a pep talk and have some compassion. And you can say, look, I know I have this debt. It is what it is. I want to become a better money manager. I'm just going to cut myself a break and stop beating myself up, and I'm going to start taking some practical steps to solve this problem. But for now, I'm just going to accept myself. I'm going to show myself some compassion, and things are going to be okay. I'm going to get through this. And you can, continue to express any words that feel right to you, but the purpose of the exercise is really to sort of settle the intensity of that negative emotion that's running through your nervous system and through your body. And so that's the first part, around being able to start to break free from that negative trauma. And now the second aspect is to actually take some practical steps to getting out of debt. And so, what you want to do is manage the spending. That, if you are using credit cards, you want to really get on top of that. And then you want to be able to put together a debt repayment plan. And, one thing that happens to people a lot if you do spend on credit cards is that people get bill shock. So I don't know if you've ever received a credit card statement and you look at the closing balance and you're like, what? There's no way I spent that amount of money. And then you actually look through the credit card statement, and at a glance, you just can't see how those items could possibly add up to, the amount that it says you owe. And so a great way to get on top of managing that is to actually track all of your credit card expenditure in a spreadsheet. So being an accountant by background, I love using spreadsheets. And I actually have one that I use to track all my credit card expenditure every month. And this will help you actually visualize what it is that you've spent and, you know, how much it adds up to. And over time, you start to get a really good feel for how much you're spending day to day that you really might not realize, you know, how much money you're burning through. But once you start to track it and you look at it every month, then it's a way of holding yourself accountable as well. And within that same spreadsheet, you can also put together a debt repayment plan to dedicate a specific amount that you're going to pay off on your credit cards every month. And so, you know, that starts to get you into the practical side of paying back debt and managing your money. But for that to work effectively, you do have to get on top of that trauma as well. Otherwise, you'll keep feeling like, look, no matter what I do, I just stay stuck in debt. But once you start to free yourself from those crippling emotions, then the practical steps, you know, will actually translate into some tangible results. And so, like I said, you can become a great money manager by getting on top of this using a spreadsheet. So I've actually got one that I do use. And if you'd like a copy of my credit card spreadsheet, then just leave me a comment below. And once I've wrapped up this series on your money mindset and the 6 types of money, then I'll actually share a copy of that spreadsheet and I'll do a video on how to use it. And you can start to practically get rid of your debt. So I hope you found that helpful. I'd love to hear your feedback. Please leave me a comment below. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video where I'll be talking about income. So that's it from me. Have a great day.